On June 23, 2018, 12 Thai boys and their assistant coach ventured deep into the tunnels of Tham Luang cave in northern Thailand. They wanted to celebrate a teammate's 16th birthday, but water from the monsoon would unexpectedly flood in, trapping them inside. Over the next 18 days, the world would watch as diving experts from different nationalities joined together to perform a complex but miraculous operation to save the lives of these boys. One ordinary Saturday in June 2018, the Wild Boars, a local junior football team, decided to explore the nearby caves after their football practice. Originally, the boys were only supposed to cycle the football field, as was communicated to the boys' parents in a Facebook chat group by their assistant coach, Ekapol Ake Chantawong. However, it also happened to be the 16th birthday of Knight, formal name Virafat Samviangchai, the oldest member of the team. The boys wanted to celebrate. Together, they pooled their money and spent more than 700 baht, US $22 on food. They then persuaded their assistant coach to go to the caves to explore. Or at least that's according to the accounts of Naparat Kantawong, the team's head coach. He described Ake as being very kind-hearted and devoted to the boys, which is why it must have been easy for the boys to convince him. The Tham Luang cave, which runs for 10 kilometers, was well known in the area. Many like to see how far they can get into the system. The boys themselves have explored it in the past. They just didn't expect that this time, their exploration would lead to them being trapped in the cave for 3 whole weeks. 7 p.m. on the same night, the parents started getting worried about their missing sons. They called the head coach and asked where the boys were, but Coach Knopp had no idea himself. He started his own round of calls. He tried to reach Ake and some of the boys, but there was no answer. Finally, he was able to get a hold of Songpal Kantawong, a 13-year-old member of the team whose mother picked him up after training. Songpal told him that his teammates had gone to explore the Tham Luang caves. That's when Coach Knopp raised the alarm. British caver Vern Unsworth was currently living in Chiang Rai. On June 24th, he received a call from Thai officials regarding the missing boys. Unsworth is not a professional caver, but he's been exploring underground caves for almost 50 years, a hobby he started when he was 16. Having explored it countless times before, Unsworth knew Tham Luang cave like the back of his hand. Unsworth drove down to meet with the officials. At the time, the rainy season, which normally runs from July to November, had already started. The rain was heavy, and there was subsequent flooding. With this worsening weather, Unsworth knew that the chance of rescuing the boys alive was not high. He couldn't do it himself, even with the help of the local officials who didn't really know how to proceed simply because they haven't encountered such a situation before. Taking matters into his own hands, Unsworth listed down the names of what he called as the world's best divers and handed the list to the former governor of the province, a man named Narongsak Osatanakorn. Included in the list were the people Unsworth believed he needed for the rescue: Rob Harper, Rick Stanton, and John Valanthan, all accomplished members of the British Cave Rescue Council, or BCRC. That same evening, the three were on a plane bound for Thailand. News of the missing boys quickly spread on the news and social media, shocking the whole world. Reporters and writers from news outlets and magazines flocked to Tham Luang to cover the progress of the rescue. Over the next 5 days, divers and officials from many countries would swarm outside the cave to lend a helping hand. Among them was a team from the United States Air Force, who arrived on the 28th, an Australian Federal Police team of Specialist Response Group divers who arrived on the 29th, and a Chinese team of divers from the Beijing Peaceland Foundation who came 2 days later. Numerous locals and international volunteers would also congregate outside the cave, where Thai officials had set up a temporary camp. During this time, the Thai Navy SEALs divers were continuing their efforts to search the cave. One Navy SEAL said that the water was so murky that it was hard to see even with their lights on. BCR members Stanton and Valanthan went straight into exploratory diving after arriving on the 27th. Supported by Thailand-based Belgian cave diver Ben Reminence and French diver Maxim Poliaka, they went to assess the situation in the cave and place diving guidelines. Above ground, policemen with sniffer dogs searched the surface for any shaft openings that could provide alternative entrances to the cave system below. Even drones and robots were put to use, though no technology existed to scan for people deep underground. Despite the massive effort, the search was forced to a halt due to the worsening weather. The heavy rainfall increased the flow of water in the cave, leading the divers to face great dangers battling strong currents and poor visibility. The 12 boys, aged 11 to 16, and their 25-year-old assistant coach had been trapped in the cave for 9 days before the rain let up enough for the search to resume. On July 2nd, approximately 10 p.m., Stanton and Valanthan were several hours deep in the cave pathfinding. They were being supported by divers from Australia and the USA who were ferrying in diving bottles and establishing air supply dumps. While laying guidelines to assist others in navigation, Valanthan ran out of line. He swam to the surface and smelled a horrible smell. On an account later, Unsworth would say that he remembered Stanton telling him that they thought the smell was dead bodies. They thought they were finding dead bodies. They smelled feces, and when they came to the surface, they were overjoyed to find the missing boys perched on a narrow ledge.
Yeah, best you can. How many of you? 13. Brilliant.
They were dazed and weak, not knowing what day it was, but they were safe and alive. Former Chiang Rai provincial governor Narongsak Asatanakorn, who was in charge of rescue work, said, "We found them safe, but the operation isn't over. It was time to get the boys out." The real challenge of the operation started not with finding the boys, but with getting them out. The boys were stranded 4 kilometers from the entrance, a 6-hour distance where divers had to go through several flooded sections, some with strong currents and nearly zero visibility. Some paths are extremely narrow, with the smallest measuring only 38 by 72 centimeters. It was going to be an extremely difficult rescue. On July 3rd, the trapped group were joined by 3 Thai Navy SEALs, which included Thai Army doctor Lieutenant Colonel Pak Loharanchun of the 3rd Medical Battalion. With supervision, they fed the boys easy-to-digest high-energy food and provided health checks and treatment. On a video created by the rescuers, the boys and their coach would be seen wrapped in emergency blankets, looking frail as they put their palms together in Y, the traditional Thai greeting. At some point during the operation, a stone diversion dam was built upstream and systems were installed to pump water out in an effort to drain the cave. On July 4th, it was estimated that the pump was removing 1,600,000 liters of water per hour from the cave. An unseasonably dry weather occurred the next day, which allowed the effort to reduce the water levels in the cave by 1.5 centimeters per hour, enabling the rescue team to walk 1.5 kilometers into the cave. They were laying out the groundwork for their rescue effort. It was during this time that the only casualty would occur. At 8:37 p.m. on July 5th, Saman Kunan, a 37-year-old former Thai Navy SEAL, was delivering oxygen tanks when he lost consciousness underwater. 2 CPR attempts were made to resuscitate him, but both failed. He was pronounced dead at 1 a.m. on July 6th. The rescue effort officially commenced on July 8th after numerous extraction options were dismissed. Suggestions included waiting for a new entrance to be found or drilled, or waiting for the floodwaters to subside by the end of the rainy season several months later, but the worsening weather made those options unthinkable. The next monsoon rain was predicted to start on July 11th, bringing additional downpours that would render their efforts in draining the cave useless. And so, on the morning of July 8th, the first team, consisting of 13 international divers and 5 Thai Navy SEALs, entered the cave. The safest way to get the boys out was to sedate them. This would ensure that the boys would not panic on the journey, which would have endangered themselves and their rescuers. Unsworth, who was coordinating the rescue mission, called upon Richard Harris, an Australian physician specializing in anesthesia. Before the journey, Harris administered anesthetic ketamine to the boys, rendering them fully unconscious. He also gave them alprazolam to prevent anxiety and atropine to steady their heart rates and reduce saliva production to prevent choking. Then the boys were packaged up. They were dressed in a wetsuit, buoyancy jacket, harness, and a positive pressure full face mask. An oxygen tank was strapped to their chest, and a handle was attached to their back so that the divers could maneuver them along the snaking path of the cave. One by one, the boys were toted along by swimming divers. Sometimes the divers held on to a boy's back or chest. At other times, the boys were pulled along while another diver pushed from behind so they could safely navigate through tight passages. The team stopped at dry land every 45 minutes to check the boys' conditions and to top up ketamine before diving again. At the staging base in Chamber 3, the boys were strapped into sked stretchers to be carried, slid, and ziplined over a complex network of pulleys installed by rock climbers. Hundreds of rescuers were stationed along the treacherous path of the cave to help guide the stretchers to the exit. It took 4 to 5 hours alone from Chamber 3 to the entrance of the cave. Authorities had warned at first that rescue might take several days as the crew would need to replace gas tanks, gear, and other supplies. But by 7 p.m. on July 8th, the first 2 boys were already out. Shortly after, 2 more boys exited the cave. By this way, the boys were rescued one by one. From July 8th to the 10th, 4 boys were taken out each day, with the assistant coach Ake also being rescued on the last day. And it was just in the nick of time. After the last boy was on his way out of the cave, the floodwaters from the forecasted rain suddenly started coming through. The reunited football team were taken to Chiang Rai Prachanakru Hospital to recover. They lost 2 kilograms each, but were in good condition. Detailed tests showed an increase in white blood cells, so the entire team was given preventative antibiotic doses. The whole team stayed 1 week in the hospital before being allowed to go home. In the aftermath, there were some observers who questioned whether the team's assistant coach should face criminal charges. However, local communities as well as the parents emphasized that they did not want to blame the boys or the coach as the rain had arrived 1 month earlier than usual. English caver Vern Unsworth stated that nobody's to blame, not the coach, not the boys, they were just very unlucky. Unsworth himself had been planning to make a solo venture into the cave on June 24th when he received a telephone call saying the boys were missing. This impressive rescue operation used massive manpower and resources. They used 7 police ambulances, 10 police helicopters, and more than 700 diving cylinders. The manpower reached a staggering number of 10,000 personnel, which included more than 100 divers, about 100 government agency representatives, 900 police officers, 2,000 soldiers, and numerous volunteers. During these 3 long weeks, the whole world had paid attention and sent collective prayers to those who risked their lives to save the 12 boys and their coach. And after witnessing the miraculous rescue, all the crews were hailed as heroes. But Unsworth said, "None of us are heroes. We've just done a job that we were asked to do, and we did it to the best of what we were able to do." Four years after this harrowing ordeal in 2018, the football team would sign a contract with Netflix. Their story, which had captivated the whole world, would be told in stark details on a 6-part limited series simply titled Thai Cave Rescue. The premiere was set on September 22nd.